teaches us how not to be a fool twice. That's what history does. We go and we read the history. We don't continue to make the same mistakes over and over again.
Where are we in the world? And how do we find ourselves, and how do we find ourselves and our place on the map of human geography? How do we tell people what went wrong? How do we get out of the terrible contradiction? After the independence of Ghana, we were so hopeful. It was in the midst of the civil rights movement and the marches, midst of the fight for Caribbean Federation. We thought that at last we had turned the corner on our way to true freedom and true unity. We underestimated our enemies. We underestimated the members of our own group who was in the pay of our enemies.
Between 1710 and 1860, and we had a possible 150 to 200 possible slavery votes. And in all 150 to 200 of them, a black person squealed in every one of them and got his meritorious manumission.
Boy, it has always been so easy to buy a Negro.
The Negro is a uniquely vulnerable creature that lives on a life support system that is controlled by us. Squatting on another man's land, living temporarily in another man's house, eating another man's food, wearing another man's clothes. This means they're always under economic force to do another man's work, and you can count on some to crack, feeling they had no other option but to reach out their hands for the bribe money that is always on the table.
History teaches us how not to be a fool twice.
In 1978, I interviewed a man who worked as an informer for the FBI during the 1960s. His name is Dothard Perry, also known as Ed Riggs, also known as Bill Perry, also known as Othello. How were you paid?
The pay was always in cash. Cash, and you would sign a card. It would go like this. A rendezvous or a drop-off point would be picked out either by yourself or the agent. You would meet the agent there. Usually it would be in a vehicle. You get in the vehicle, he would hand you the money. He would tell you first to count the money. He would tell you the amount while you counted it. If the amount was there, he would then bring out a card. On that card would be for the week of such and such. In other words, the week was dated. So-and-so has been paid the amount of. Then you would sign the card, and then the agent would sign the card. The reason for this is that if all of a sudden the IRS became very interested about where you were getting all this extra money from, you could always tell them to go back to the Bureau, and the Bureau would have your cards on file.
How did we become a race with more traitors than freedom fighters?
We have all been schooled and indoctrinated to be traitors. First, we were schooled and indoctrinated to bury the anguished cries of our foreparents in the pit of a forgetfulness. And then we were schooled to abandon the struggle for collective liberation and replaced it with a selfish struggle to get money for me and myself alone. From this mindset came politicians that sell their people for a price, soulless Negroes that would allow themselves to be used as ears and eyes for the slave master just for a paycheck, and soldiers and policemen that would promptly kill their own people as long as they are given the order.
Every one of us was indoctrinated so that we would be inclined to have a dead racial allegiance and a dead social conscience.
You also were active in the infiltration of many cultural groups. Before we go into that step by step, how much research and study did the FBI engage in of black culture in the late 60s?
A great amount.
Give me an idea.
From the thing is, I can, they have a file on every type of magazine that blacks read. They have a file on the music.
Music?
Music, dance, theater, actors, comedians, you name it, man.
And they would actually study these different...
Yes. Oh, yes, definitely.
What would they do with music?
To understand the people, you have to understand the culture. To infiltrate, you have to understand.
Tell me about some of the cultural organizations that you infiltrated and what you did.
PASLA, Mafunde, Watts Writers Workshop, which they had.
The Watts Writers Workshop?
Yes. Watts Writers Workshop, which was one of the oldest established black writers workshop.
That place was burned down.
Yeah. The Bureau had it burnt down.
How do you know that?
I know because I participated. I did the arson.
You burned down the Watts Writers?
Yes.
How did you do it?
2 cans of kerosene, Purex bottle, gasoline, and a flare, highway flare.
Why didn't you use more sophisticated stuff?
Oh, no. No. You're never overly sophisticated. It's too obvious. This way you make it look like, maybe somebody in the neighborhood that got kicked out of the theater at one time got mad and came and burned the damn theater up, that kind of thing.
But you were involved in this theater? I mean, didn't it get to you at all what you were...
Hey, man, that got to me a great deal. I love that theater. I built the stage.
You built the stage?
Oh, yeah. When I got to the workshop, the stage that had been, the original stage that had been built needed an extension on it. The original part of the stage was in terrible condition. They had no lighting system. I put the lighting system in myself. I put the stage in myself. And that was a stage, man. And that was a theater. It's a nice theater.
It is called meritorious manumission, a system of slave control used yesterday and still used today. This is how it works. If you keep the slave master informed on what the slaves are doing, and you work on behalf of the slave master against your own people, you will gain privileges. And in this time of economic hardship, you will not have to worry about how to get money.
Was part of your other activities and responsibilities to study the profiles of celebrities who were supportive of organizations?
Definitely, and especially, like I said, psychological backgrounds, weaknesses and strengths. Did he have a weakness for blondes? Did he have a weakness for money? Did he snort cocaine? Did he smoke marijuana? They even get into, and that's one thing the Bureau loves, is their sexual background. They have files and files on different blacks, not only celebrities, but a lot of others, sexual activity.
What would they do with this information?
Oh, that's used as a weakness.
So they would feed to these weaknesses?
Yes.
Did you see that happen?
Oh, yes. I was supposed to worm my way into the infections of his sister, and whatever it took to get the information that I needed as far as what kind of defense they planned to use as to turn this information over to the federal prosecution.
A true African liberator is a disciplined one that controls his belly and his pants.
How did you justify to the organizations in which you had infiltrated yourself that you were living on an $800 a week stipend or on an $800 a week standard of living when most of them were living hand to mouth?
Well, hey, brother, I'm hustling, I mean, hey, man, so a little this on the side, little that on the side, I get over, that kind of thing. In other words, ain't nobody's business but mine where I get the money. So, everybody took it for granted that I was possibly doing a little dealing on the side, that kind of thing. Then also, everybody liked me for the simple reason that I would do things that I didn't have to do. I would go out of my way. Like Mafunde would have a pageant and they needed someone to do the sound setup for him, and I'd say, of course, I'll do it for you, that kind of thing. I was very well liked at one time in the community.
History teaches us how not to be a fool twice. That's what history does. We go and we read the history. We don't continue to make the same mistakes over and over again.
Put your bad self. Say it louder. Say it louder. Here, some people say we got a lot of malice. Some say it's a lot of nerve. I say we won't quit moving until we get what we deserve. We've been built and we've been scorned. We've been treated bad, talked about, as sure as you born. Just as sure as it takes 2 eyes to make a pair. Brother, we can't quit until we get our share. Say it loud. Say it loud. One more time. Say it loud. I've worked on jobs with my feet in my hand. All the work I did was for the other man. And now we demand a chance to do things for ourselves.
The community was flooded with drugs. Hoover and the FBI, they made sure that the drugs were an influence.
This is a CBS News special report. In the pay of the CIA, an American dilemma. In a moment, CBS News correspondent Mike Wallace.
The Tax-Free Foundation. Here's what happened. First, CIA itself set up a number of dummy foundations, calling them by impressive sounding if meaningless names. Their sole function was to channel money from the CIA to a second kind of foundation. Now, these foundations were real. Some obscure, some well-known, all involved in legitimate philanthropy. But now, in addition, they agreed to become conduits for Central Intelligence, mixing up the government money with their own, and then passing it on to the ever-growing list of private organizations which, during the 40s, 50s, and 60s, were climbing aboard the CIA payroll. This is the 1964 statement of the Sidney and Esther Rabb Foundation. Mr. Rabb was among the many philanthropists involved in CIA transactions who preferred not to talk with CBS News. For 1964, the Rabb Fund had only 3 cash contributions. Everything else came from its own securities. But 3 known CIA dummies contributed $25,000, $20,000, and $6,000. These are the Rabb Fund's benefactions for 1964. $16.66 to Brandeis University, $3 to the Businessmen's Council, and so on, until we come to $25,000 for the International Development Foundation. Then some more modest donations, then $20,000 to the Society of African Culture.
There's a war going on. These Crips and Bloods have been warring for 30-odd years. One of the longest-running wars in the history of this country.
There can always be someone outside that's ready to kill me because of where I live at.
We go over there and kill one of them, and they come over and kill one of us.
It's like we born into it. You can't dodge, run away, and get out of this. This is what it is.
911, what's your emergency?
Over the past 20 years alone in LA County, there's been over 15,000 gang-related deaths.
If you had 15,000 people killing each other in any other country, there would be diplomats, there would be mediators, it would go to the UN.
I grew up in the hood. I was born in the hood. I was raised in the hood. I'm gonna die in the hood. I didn't choose my destiny. My destination chose me.
From whence cometh our help? Yes, and give us health and strength, Rastafari, in these
But yet, gloom and despair cannot be found in the character of the true African liberator, for he is not a gloomy pessimist. In the words of Haile Selassie, today we look to the future calmly, confidently, and courageously. We look to the vision of an Africa not merely free, but united. In facing this new challenge, we can take comfort and encouragement from the lessons of the past. We know that there are differences among us. Africans enjoy different cultures, distinctive values, special attributes. But we also know that unity can be and has been attained among men of the most disparate origins. But we also know that unity can be and has been attained among men of the most disparate origins. That differences of race, of religion, of culture, of tradition are no insuperable obstacles to the coming together of peoples. History teaches us that unity is strength and cautions us to submerge and overcome our differences in the quest for common goals, to strive with all our combined strength for the path to true African brotherhood and unity. There are those who claim that African unity is impossible, that the forces that pull us, some in this direction, others in that, are too strong to be overcome. Around us, there is no lack of doubt and pessimism, no absence of critics and criticism. These speak of Africa, of Africa's future, and of her position in the 20th century in sepulchral tones. They predict dissension and disintegration among Africans, and internecine strife and chaos on our continent. Let us confound these, and by our deeds disperse them in confusion. There are others whose hopes for Africa are bright, who stand with faces upturned in wonder and awe at the creation of a new and happier life, who have dedicated themselves to its realization and are spurred on by the example of their brothers to whom they owe the achievements of Africa's past. Let us reward their trust and merit their approval. The road of African unity is already lined with landmarks. The last years are crowded with meetings, with conferences, with declarations and pronouncements. Regional organizations have been established. Local groupings based on common interests, backgrounds and traditions have been created. But through all that has been said and written and done in these years, there runs a common theme. Unity is the accepted goal. We argue about means. We discuss alternative paths to the same objectives. We engage in debates about techniques and tactics. But when semantics are stripped away, there is little argument among us. We are determined to create a union of Africans. In a very real sense, our continent is unmade. It still awaits its creation and its creators. It is our duty and privilege to rouse the slumbering giant of Africa, not to the nationalism of Europe in the 19th century, not to regional consciousness, but to the vision of a single African brotherhood, bending its united efforts toward the achievement of a greater and nobler goal.
Let us lift our eyes to the hills, from whence cometh our help. Yes, and give us health and strength, Rastafari, in these challenging times. I say, never let I foot be moved, show I to improve. Let the words of my mouth and meditation be true. Cause Africa awaits its creator. Those at home and abroad, Africa awaits its creator. Those at home and abroad, so let peace be within thy walls, and prosperity in the palace, to every rebel with a cause. Jah is watching over his prophets, so when you're going out and coming in, let Jah protect you forevermore. Oh yeah, oh yeah. And just like the days of mighty King David, we trample the Philistines, defending our faith. See now, Never let high foot be moved on the battlefield. Can't lose. Let the Eden know the Most High's carrying it through. And Africa awaits its creators. Those at home and abroad. Africa awaits its creators. Those at home and abroad. So let peace be within thy walls, and prosperity in the palace to every rebel with a cause. Jah is watching over his prophets. Hey, he that keepeth I and I in a sleep and in the slumber. So the sun shall not smite I, no one fight I either. For Jah is thy keeper, yeah, strength and redeemer forever. Good over even from that time to this time, you know. One heart, one love to everyone. Africa awaits its creators. Those at home and abroad. Africa awaits its creators. Those at home and abroad. Africa awaits its creators. Those at home and abroad. Africa awaits its creators. Those at home and abroad. So let peace be behind those bars, and prosperity in the palace to every rebel with a cause. Jah is watching over his prophets. I. Jah is watching over his prophets.